Bam, we are live, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, what it do, what it is, what's happening, what it been to do, what up, though, what's happening in. It's your guy Nate Bennett with another extraordinary episode of the Extraordinary Exchange Podcast. We are brought to you by the amazing, extraordinary 12 Black men of the Extraordinary Investment Group. We are doing everything we can to positively impact our community through education and smart financial strategies. That never changes. Y'all know what the vibe is. Thank everybody who's been supporting us, subscribing to what we're doing, supporting events, supporting the podcast. It's been all love, man. So we appreciate you. Got my co-host Ryan Shotgun with me tonight, as always. Benzino, what's good with you, Benz?
Ain't nothing, man. Peace. How you feeling today? Peace in the Middle East, matter of fact. Literally.
Yeah,
Real, literally. We've been saying that since kids, and it still holds true
for
today,
real.
man. Peace in the
Yeah.
Middle East.
Peace in the Middle East.
I'm doing good though, bro. How you feeling today?
Good. I'm an 8. I guess I asked him if he was, how he was on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. He was an 8. I'm about to solid 8 too, man.
That's real.
Yeah, we're doing good. Yeah, man. Looking forward to an extraordinary exchange. I was talking to our guest before we hit play right here, explaining how he and a lot of people that he's around have been very influential in just the creation of the podcast, how we are having these exchanges with certain people in different spaces, and definitely want to give him his flowers tonight and just highlight him. He's an amazing individual, been supportive of what we've been doing from day one. He's somebody who truly embodies what it means to live with intention, especially nowadays in a world that just wants you to exist. So shout out to you, family. He's not just creative, he's a storyteller, he's a visionary, and a builder of meaning, singer, actor, entrepreneur, you know, kind of jack of all trades. There's a lot of dope stuff. Mainly, if y'all can see, y'all can't see the brand name. CEO of this dope brand right here called Life Be Lifin'. Y'all see it across his chest as well. Just want to give him his flowers again. And welcome to the Extraordinary Exchange Podcast, our good family, Mr. Khalif Lambert-Sandy. What's going on, Khalif?
What's up, brothers? Thank y'all for having me. I'm excited. I couldn't wait. A lot of times I'm a man of a few words. I like to sit back and observe, and every now and then, I get the nerve to talk, to let out my feelings because I'm a person that wears his heart on his sleeve. And so I think I protect that by not saying much, but just watching. And I guess that's what the brand is about for me. Just living, loving, anything that I can share that I have, that I could give to somebody else that could benefit them. I do. I had a lot of people in life, um, you know, look into me and pour into me in a positive way because they've seen my potential. They've seen something in me sometimes I didn't even see in myself. So I always appreciate taking what I've learned from them and passing it on to someone else. So that's truly, where I am and who I am.
Dope, man. Appreciate you again for being on the pod. And I forgot to mention Philly's own. Philly's own. Khalif, man. Gotta show love to my fellow.
Yes, sir. Philly born and raised. Philly born and raised.
Philly. Yeah, so just give a kind of brief synopsis. We know you're from Philly. We know you got this brand.
Yes.
But just behind all that, like who are you as an individual, and what is it that you do to contribute to this dope world that we have in extraordinary ways?
That's a great question. I can talk about my experience and things that I've done, but like when you say as far as contribute to this extraordinary world, because I suffer from imposter syndrome, I don't feel like I'm doing this big contribution to life. I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? So I mean, I grew up in Philly, born as a Muslim, went to Muslim school, school shut down. Went to Catholic school as a Muslim kid. Learned, learned about Christianity, Catholicism, and then I converted to Baptist Christian when I got into my teen years, while going into a Jesuit high school. So that was, yeah, man. I never thought that that was such a cool story until maybe a couple. Matter of fact, when I met Ken, he was like, because everybody's always said, Khalif, what's your story? I never thought I had one. People, because if you watch TV, especially when I'm a little older than you guys, but when I grew up, anytime you saw somebody with a story, it was always this sad story, rough times, all of that stuff. And I was like, I can't really relate to that because, my parents, although they were middle class, they made sure my sister and I didn't want for anything. I went to private school. And so I didn't feel like I had a story because I thought your story had to mean trauma. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just living. I created. I was a R&B singer for a while. I mean, I still sing from time to time. I had an EP that was produced by Chad Hugo from NERD. If anybody you remember the clips and Nerd Team, that was cool. I wrote songs, didn't get accepted, but I wrote songs for Beyonce that I was asked. I wrote songs for Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake. Those cool things. They never got taken into consideration. However, if you all remember Elle Varner, she recorded one of my songs. That was cool. It didn't make her album though. I opened up for Vivian Green, Kendrick the Family Soul. So I did some cool things musically. My EP called Emotional Breakthroughs is on Spotify now. One of my first songs in 2010 hit 51 on the BBC charts. It's called "You Got Me Singing." So I had a cool career. I'm from Philly. Music is in our blood and cheesesteaks. So yeah, so that's basically what I've done in my early portion of my life.
I'm gonna ask you where the best cheesesteak spot is. So go ahead and think about that now in the back of your mind.
Philly raised me, man. I mean, I've had some blessed experiences in Philly. However, I think I was able to really truly grow once I moved, and I experienced something different. The DMV is different. It's a hustle bustle town. And it makes you, there's a lot of entrepreneurs here, and it makes you want to be an entrepreneur. So, I definitely appreciate the DMV. Although there was a period though, like I said, I'm older. And so, back in the 80s, I remember when I was a kid, there was a lot of Black entrepreneurship in Philly. A lot of store shop owners. It was very, very interesting to see. Looking back on it, it was cool. My dad, he had his own business as an electrician. His sister, my aunt, she had a couple of stores on 52nd Street, or it was out 60th Street. Near Walnut, and then also 52nd Street near Market in Philly.
Prime location right there. That's where everybody went to shop.
Facts.
Like, my church was on 59th and Catherine. So after church, we would go right
Oh,
down there, Market Street, go get some
uh-huh.
food, do some shopping. Like that's
Yeah,
prime location right
52nd
there.
Street 52nd Street used to be popping.
That's what's up.
Every day I just, try to make the next day better. This I tell you what though, we've been on such a meteoric rise from our hustle that I haven't been able to appreciate the simple things in life like I've always done. So in this level of, love the success, don't want it to change. Let me put all that out there with the energy. But for a while I didn't have peace. It didn't feel good for a little while because it just felt always constantly moving, fast paced, always something to do. And I'm bringing this up because we recently was on a podcast about, it was supposed to be about men's mental awareness and health. And so I think I just wasn't healthy for a while mentally because I've always been a person to do self check-ins, to make sure I'm good. I sit by myself, no TV, no noise, and just think about, is things good? Is the situation good? Am I good? Because if if I'm not good for me, I can't be good in any kind of situation. You know what I mean? And so I've just been working more on that. That's what life be life and is for me right now. It's something different for everybody, and that's my cheap play on the on the brand. But yeah, that's just basically where I'm at.
So what made you decide to take that philosophy and make it a brand? Like what went from just the life philosophy, this gonna be my brand, you gonna push it and motivate behind it?
It just happened organically, meaning I one day I came back from vacation, and I was at work because I'm also an IT professional as well. And so somebody was like, "How you been? I haven't seen you in a while." I was like, "You know what? Life be lifing." And I didn't know that was like that saying had already kind of started being said like a year prior. And so then somebody's like, "Yeah, you know what? That is true." So then I walked down the hall a little bit. Somebody asked me the same thing, and I said the same exact thing, and they were like, "That is true." So I was like, "Ding, ding, ding! I'm gonna put it on a T-shirt." So I literally, went home, talked to Ken. He was like, "Go for it." And so I hired a graphic designer. Told him the idea that I wanted, and then we put it on a T-shirt, and then organically, like some of my friends started wearing it, of course. Once you get your friends wearing it, then other people see, and then people was like, "Oh, let me get one." So the t-shirts were kind of popping for a little while, and then somebody's like, "You got hoodies?" And once I got hoodies, it just blew up. And then people started
Mhm.
telling their stories. People were, some folks were cancer survivors, and some folks had mental challenges. Some folks, I mean, it was just this whole organic thing of people telling their stories and feeling empowered, you know, to push through. Um, and they started reaching out to me and telling me how the brand was, saving them and making them feel better. And I didn't know how to receive that because I just thought I was starting, an apparel brand.
That's dope. That's dope. And like you said, the cool thing behind it is a message that anybody can apply to their own struggles, to their own perils,
Correct.
and make it adaptable to their life. So I like that's dope.
Yeah, once the brand got going for me, I also wanted to change the mindset about what life be life and is, because I didn't want people to always feel like, it's a depressing thing or I'm just
Mhm.
always going through, you know what I mean? What about when you're on the other side? What about, you know, the benefits of your work that you put in, and now you're doing right. You're doing well. Life is life and on the upswing, you know what I mean? So I want all aspects of life be life. And somebody I'm the other day I was with a Persian friend of mine, and she was like, "You know what? Life was life in for me in so many different ways today." It was just, and
Mm.
so that's where I really wanted to go. I know, it's a phrase, a popular phrase that everybody uses, especially if they're going through something, in a negative way. But, I just wanted to change that, to give people some hope, give people something to look forward to. Because if you are going through something, like, yo, it's going to change.
Mhm.
It's going to be better on the other side.
I always say that you need the rainy days to appreciate the sunny days.
Correct.
That you need that, so that balance is really what life is. That
Right.
that that balance between that good and the bad. So you need one to recognize the other. The test puts you through, make you a stronger person for the other
Yeah.
end of it. So that balance really is really what life is, it all together.
Absolutely, man. And so when I touched on, my religious background, I'm no longer into religion. I do believe in God, but I feel like we have a lot of the answers within ourselves. We just have to believe in ourselves, in that manner. And so I think that that's what life be life and really, it is, let to believe in yourself. The answers are within. You just have to believe and reach and talk to yourself. It's not a crazy thing to to talk to yourself and look for answers within.
So, all right, I like on that note specifically, I like that pivot right there, and I completely agree. right?
Mhm.
As someone who is a father and a parent,
Yeah.
use positive reinforcement, always pouring into them positive affirmations,
Mhm.
telling yourself that story in your mind over and over and over again. Like I can say one thing to my daughter, she'll go on a whole 2 minute spiel about like with a whole affirmation, right?
Right.
Because that's important, right? You gotta reinforce that because there's so much. We were just talking about peace in the Middle East. There's so much turmoil, so much strife going on in the world that you
Correct.
gotta do that, right? You gotta talk nice to yourself. So when you talk about believing in yourself, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, right? Because
Right.
you have a lot of people who have false belief, right?
Correct.
You
Oh,
see the
yes.
bravado, and you know, all right, you're performing, bro. You don't really believe that, especially on a basketball court, right? You got
Mhm.
somebody got the fresh J's doing all this, but like you don't
Yeah.
even believe it. How
Right.
have you, or if you have a theoretical thing that you follow, how does someone start believing in themselves if they don't believe in themselves currently?
That is a great question, especially for somebody like me. That's like I said, I suffer from imposter syndrome. I think, well, I've had amazing reinforcements since I was a kid. My family. My family. This is why I always, and this will be another subject too. I never felt like I had a story. I think I touched on that a little bit, and so, but my family, I had a strong foundation from my grandma, my grandmother to even my parents, and my aunts, uncles, cousins. A lot of people who visit my family, they all say you could put y'all on an island and y'all will be good by yourselves. You know what I mean? That's the kind of family that I had a strong foundation. So that's what it was for me. And also, every even as a kid, I just always woke up happy and positive. And so I just always been a positive person. Looking at the positive aspects in life, and then also having um, parents that made me feel like I can do and be anything that I want to be. And then I also had some amazing teachers that instilled that in me. So I guess it's the whole village concept that, made me at times feel like I could do and be anything that I want to be. Now, the tough part for me is when I got out there and experienced, because I've always saw success in everything that I've done, right? And then when I got out there and I saw some failures, I was like, what is this? Uh-oh. And failures due to my own doing, you know what I mean? And then that's when the self-doubt started to come in. And then when I started dating other people who challenged me on who I was because they didn't appreciate, you know, the true innocence or naivete that was there. I it it that even brought in more self doubt. So I allow other influences to change what I thought and saw in myself. Which created this whole imposter syndrome thing. So, but now I'm 50. I understand all of that. I knew what all of that was, and I'm here. I worked through it, and that's I guess that's my story. I hope I answered your question, or touched on it, or touched base on it.
Oh, 100%. You started with, and I've heard you say this several times. You're the Huxtables, right? Your family's the Huxtables, the village,
They did
the
call my mom and
family,
dad.
positive reinforcement. And as someone who was at your 50th birthday party, I know you look several decades younger, but you just turned 50, and then seeing how many people travel from far and wide to just show you love in that room. I've been to some dope birthday parties, right? And
Mhm.
there wasn't no big, lavish, extravagant thing, but the people that were there, the video that they put up on the board, and how they spoke about you and spoke life into you, that definitely contributed. So that's what you spoke to right there for sure. Shout out to
Yeah,
them.
I was glad that people got to witness my cool family. We're not perfect, so don't nobody roll up thinking, oh, they perfect. No, we're not perfect. We have issues like every family, but we love each other. We anybody that was born into my family was born into love, and so that's what my birthday party was about. I had 3 generations of family there. I had friends from every era in my life there, young, old, new. It was nothing but good, positive energy. One of the things that I really love was to see all these Black women that didn't know each other loving each other, right?
Mm,
And so because we always hear about, oh, black women can't get along, or black people can't get along,
mm,
and every woman that walked away from there was like, wow, I had never experienced anything like this. And that made me feel good. That made me feel like I've been doing what I was supposed to put here on earth to do, put dope ass people together.
So that you talk a lot about that tribe around you, your family. What does life be life in mean to some of those folks?
Right.
How do they do that? Like I said, everybody looks at that phrase differently. So the
Mhm.
people who know you your whole life, who watch you become the boy to the man and help to guide you, what does life
mm,
be life mean to them?
I don't know. You got to ask them that. It's different for
Okay,
everybody. You know what I mean? It's personal. I can tell you what it means for me. I
right.
can't tell you what it means for Nate. What I do know is my family's proud of me.
Okay.
I can speak to that. They let me know all the time, even though I don't think I'm worthy of it. Sometimes because when when you look at what the older generation endured and achieved and have done with less, you know, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm worthy of what they have done, where it was harder. So, but then I also have learned you can't compare yourself to that. You're in your time, you're in your moment, and that's what it is. I know for some of my family members, times are tough. And so, life be life and may be life in a rough way for them right now. I know some family members that's even kill and everything is good. And that's how life is life for them. So, it just means something different for all of them. But I would have to ask them what it means to them.
And I guess the reason why I asked that question was you spoke about feeling at times having imposter syndrome, which we all suffer from.
Hmm.
You talked about not being worthy, and I
Yeah.
wanted you to take a second and just think about it's people who you know and love, people who you've
Hmm.
never met before, who all
Yeah.
somehow find value in what you've done. So don't feel as though you haven't done enough or unworthy or being an imposter when actually your brand is impacting people. So I want to say, I'm sure you have conversations with those friends and family before, and they've said, okay, this is what this means to me. So I want you to, in those times, think about
Yeah.
that. Like, it's everything is what it is. So
Yeah.
if you are influencing those around you, if you are influencing those that you don't even know, you can't be an imposter. You are influencing help people out get through their time, get through their struggles, get them into life. So don't ever think of yourself like that. Like I said, I've been there before. Trust me, I know. But you kind of got to look at the reality of the situation, and you are doing it, and you're doing a great job of it. And so live in that, living in truth, as they say.
I appreciate your line of questioning too. It was brilliant. I'm a person that pays attention to how a person brings things forward. I appreciate the way you brought that. It was intelligent.
Yeah, man. Because I think a lot of times we feel like our friends and family are supposed to show us love, they're supposed to praise us, so we don't value that. But in reality, those are the opinions that we really value the most.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's all it really was. Sometimes you got to take a
Yeah.
step back and say, hey, man, if these people don't recognize what I'm doing and they give me congratulations on what I'm doing, hey, I might be doing the right thing. That's all.
Right. That's good. And I'm gonna carry that with me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes,
For
sir.
real. Yeah, that was a blessing.
And listening to your origin story, right? You got that battery in your back when you went home and told Ken, and he said, "All right, let's do it."
Mhm.
Right? There's so
Yeah.
many people that are in the grave right now that have unrealized dreams and businesses that they never brought to fruition because they didn't get that cosign. So many of
Facts.
us don't have that tribe, or that
Yeah.
they tribe that is around them might have gave them, I mean, it's cool, but I heard life be life before. Somebody probably already got that, and that would have
Mhm.
tempered out the whole idea. You wouldn't have felt good about it, and it could
Right.
have never, ever, ever even came to fruition. So, again, shout out
Yeah.
to that.
And Ken is a forward thinker, and so the way he rolled out the two businesses that we have as well was brilliant. And the minute the minute he saw what Life Be Life was doing and he bought in, I was like, yeah, I got something here. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, this shit good. And so it just I was like, all right, let's just go full force, put all your effort in it, because a lot of my life I've been a person who anything I put my mind to, I can excel at, right? But being as though I was that kid with the expectations and, all of the private schooling and going to summer school to prepare for college and all this other stuff, it got exhausting. So I've
Mm,
just found a way to coast in life. You know what I mean? Like I was okay with,
mm,
it's like okay with being a C student,
mm.
because it's good enough to get by. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's cozy. And then 40 going on 41, meet Ken, and he's anything but that. He's like entrepreneur, let's go. And that helped me so much. It brought me out of that cozy, comfy place. And it's what and after watching how he moved and being supportive of that, it made me feel like I could make the move too.
I gotta give y'all props. I'm a sucker for anybody that um, makes those around me, specifically my daughters, feel good. If you create a moment for them, right? So
Yeah,
life be life, and you can ask her what life be life in me because she'll start saying it, right? This
yeah,
isn't just a T-shirt that I just pulled off for the podcast. Like I just did laundry and ironed this because she just wore this a few days ago. Like, she wears the brand,
yeah.
right? And when you just gave her a shirt at y'all 5K, over the summertime, I'm just like, all right, cool, I appreciate it. But that really impacted her. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all showing up for her and doing that. You didn't have to do it. And then seeing you again this week, you give me a hat to give her. Hey, what size Brooklyn again? I'm gonna send her something. Like I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me, but seeing that it means a lot to her as well. Seeing just the brand reflecting the younger generation, right? So again, thank
I
y'all
wanted
for
to
that.
touch everybody, bro. Like,
Yeah.
kid, I was a kid once, and you know, kids can be. I mean, they can be rock headed and hard headed, but they can be some of the most special, beings on this planet. Y'all have kids, I don't. I have nieces and nephews, and so I was the kid in the neighborhood that was putting on the talent shows and getting all the kids together, and like in my family, putting a talent show for the Thanksgiving together. You know what I mean? That was who I was. And so when I met your daughter, because she has a shyness to her too, I like bringing people out of that, letting people know it's okay. Who you are is okay. Because I had so many people making me feel like who I was is not okay. Whether I was nerdy or at times quiet or, a little naive or, just gay, you know what I mean? So, or black, I've all of those things. And so I've had any aspect of my life of who I was, who I am, people making me feel like I'm not okay. And so I want people to know and feel like you okay. It's okay to be who you are. And so it was my pleasure to just give your daughter the t-shirt. And then the fact that it makes her feel empowered, bro, I'll try not to tear up on here.
No, but even in that though, right? Again, the way I father, positive reinforcement, all that. She'll go into a space and be timid until she feels safe and know that that space has welcomed her in.
Yeah.
So y'all, her catching passes from some of the lady football players out there for the DC
Oh, the
Divas.
divas,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So like that environment, embracing her. I could have told her the whole time, "Hell, this is a
Yeah.
cool place. You can do X, Y, and Z." All right,
Yeah.
Dad, I hear you, right? But
Yeah.
then the space actually welcoming her in is totally
Yeah.
different. So you creating that safe space for people to be themselves through
Yeah.
life be life through because life be life and is not it started right
Mhm.
as a apparel brand, right?
Mhm.
T-shirts, then hoodies and hats and truckers, but it's even more than that. So kind of talk about that pivot on how you're positioning. I don't even know if you're intentionally doing this. From my perspective, from an analytical perspective, it looks like it's very intentional, and knowing who Ken is, it
Mhm.
seems very intentional.
So the
How,
major
how
big
are you? I was gonna say, how are you navigating that? Like transitioning from it being an apparel brand to now
a
not
movement.
it just having a life of its own and being a movement, but you being the face of that movement and you being a brand yourself as well.
So I'm one of those people, if I'm not clear on something, I will sit the fuck still. right?
Mm.
I'm not going to force anything. Um, Within the past couple of months, life be life has been at a standstill apparel wise because I wanted to transition it into truly what I really want it to be, and I want the clothing to be merchandise. I was a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain. I loved how, he went to all of these different places and sat down with all of these different people and ate food and just talked about experiences. Because that's as a kid, I loved different experiences. I'm black all day, but black ain't the same. So I wanted to experience all the black experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hood, the rich, all of that. I've navigated that. Okay. So thankfully I went to college. When I met Indian friends, can I try your food? When I Asian friends, can I go to your family's house? I was intentional about those things because I wanted to learn about so many different people, lives, all of that stuff. So I resonated with Anthony Bourdain because of that. Um, and then I also like to talk about hot type of topic items, meaning and not in a way to exploit it, but to truly try to understand it, right? Whether it's race, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, let's talk about it. Let's try to have an understanding, even if we don't agree. But I just want to understand what your mindset is like. That's just how I've always been, and so life be life, and is starting to move in that area, but it just happened organically because people, like I said, people were telling their stories, and I was like, wow, I never knew that, or so and then once Ken saw how it was moving, he's a business guy, so he knows how to build networking events around that so that other like-minded people that enjoy meeting other good like-minded people have a good time together. I don't know if have you've been to some of the events or what have you, Nate? And so it's just a collective group of people that are all successful in their own way, being able to let their guard down but still offer value in a sense where it's not used but respected and appreciated.
So let
Yeah.
me ask you this then. Now that you've kind of gone through the process,
Still
we
going.
still going through the process,
Yeah, because
but
we're always evolving. Yeah.
you
But go
got
ahead.
you got to evolve. You got, but so on your evolution journey,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone else who's in that same position of, hey, I'm not a fashion designer, hey, I'm not a brand builder, but I
Mhm.
got a dope concept, a dope idea, and I want to build a brand around it. What are some things? What are some good things, bad things, general advice that you would give to that person from your journey?
So there was a guy who's a best friend of mine. Back when I was doing my singing and writing, right? And he said to me, he said, I really think you need to get around other songwriters because at the time I was being asked to write songs for other people. He said, get around some other people that are doing the same thing, right? Or has a similar mindset. I love tennis, right?
Mhm.
Once I started learning tennis, I didn't want to play people on my same level. I wanted to
Mhm.
play people that was better, because I can learn. I'm like, and so that's just who I am. Like if I learn something and it's a challenging thing or I have to compete in it, I want to play somebody's better,
Mhm.
because it's easier for me to figure out the person that's on my level, a lot of times, or or someone that might not be as good as me in this particular thing. That's easy. Give me the person that I could really dissect his game, look at what he's doing, where his weak spots are, to try to figure out how to finally beat him. And that's what tennis was for me. Tennis really let me know the warrior that I am. If I'm gonna speak openly and frankly and honestly, because I did I hated somebody bragging about being able to beat me at the sport. And so I'm a critical thinker on the court. I'm going to break your game down. I'm going to watch what you do and try to learn from that and figure out how to navigate it and beat you. And so I sorry I turned it into a competitive
Oh
thing,
wow.
but I just say to people, surround yourself around like-minded people, you know, that are elevated enough that you can learn from. Like constantly and then don't stay there. You know, go out and meet other people to learn from that, you know, and I think that's what builds character and build person and personality and helps you, you know. That's what helped me.
I love that advice. Don't be afraid to ask those folks the question that you ask. I think a lot of times if we even get in those rooms,
Hmm.
we're afraid to leverage the space. So don't be. If you got a question,
Yes.
ask the question. That's what they're there for. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
like that
glad you
answer.
said that. I used to be there was times I would be scared to speak up in certain spaces, especially if it was like a lot of powerful people. But
Mhm.
then I just got over that. I was like, you're never going to learn or know if you don't ask. So I just ask. I don't care if it's a dumb question or not. You know, I don't believe in dumb questions. I don't, because sometimes the person just doesn't know. You know what I mean? So
And
I believe in
you
questions.
wouldn't be in those rooms with those select people if somebody there didn't appreciate your knowledge for some reason. So
Correct.
most times, if somebody brought you in there for a reason, so you got to use that leverage. And that's it.
Absolutely. Use your leverage. 100%. Yep. Yeah. And I think, and so I think because of Dry, having so much attention on it is why Life Be Life is partly why Life Be Life was able to get some attention right away.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Like I said, you got to use that. You got to use what you got. Anything you can do to propel you move forward, use
yeah,
it to your advantage.
correct. Yeah.
We're
Great
having a
advice.
conversation between the three of us just to provide context. We've heard the name Ken several times. Ken
Yeah.
is Khalif's husband. Shout out to Ken. Ken is
Yes, sir.
also the founder and co-creator of Dry Garment Care. Go back to episode maybe about 30. Ken was a guest on our podcast before, so shout out to
Yeah.
Ken family. Again, y'all been supporters of everything we've done from day one, so
Yeah.
we appreciate you both.
With Dry, Kim was intentional about making sure we were a part of the community. You know, we didn't want to be a business that dropped itself in the community and then don't support it. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things we were intentional about. And even when COVID and we were, you know, losing money, you know, we made sure we were still out there giving back to the community, offering, you know, doing clothing drives, food drives, pickups, you know, offering some restaurants, you know, some free, you know, washing because at the time they could barely afford, you know what I mean? So we made sure we definitely was out there, you know, trying to be really be a part of the community that was, you know, pouring into us and giving their hard-earned money to us and trust to us.
So I want to ask you a question just from a business perspective, right? A lot of what you've talked about with the brand is the purpose driven aspect of it, how it's impacting people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a monetary process to that too. You know what I'm saying? You
Yes.
want to be profitable, you want to
Mhm.
make money. How do you
Yes.
balance purpose with profits within your business?
That's a great point. And so I'm still learning that because I'm the guy that instead of say like if I'm on the street sometimes you catch me at the right moment, you know, instead of saying, "Hey, here's the website, buy this." Like, "I like your jacket." Okay, here. You know what I mean? And so that's the tough part about it for me. Ken is really coaching me through it because he understands it now. Like he was just like me, you know, with Dry, wanted to give it all away. And so, you know, we're still a business at the end of the day. You know, we have to make money on what we do. And so that's always been the tough part for me. Because I'm such he is too, and I'm such a lover of humanity, you know, and it's which is why I always try to make sure that Life Be Life and is affordable. You know, I had to up my prices a little bit because, you know, tariffs, all of that other stuff. I don't want to just spit all of the jargon, but you know, prices went up a little bit. And so, but I try to make sure Life Be Life and is affordable. You know, I tell people all the time because people hit me up. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to buy all of this stuff." You know, but right now times are hard. I said, "Then wait." You know, we're here. You know, we'll be around. You know, when you can. You know, or wait for a sale. When you see me drop that 20%, you know, then and if you can afford that, you know, go for it. Don't Life Be Life and isn't about going broke for. It's not. You know, it's not like and not to disrespect anyone. Your money is your money. I'm not telling you how to spend it, but it's not like, you need to pay your rent, but you want to get these Jordans or something like that. And once again, I'm not talking down on anyone. I'm just saying I don't want people doing that for life be life, and you know what I
Yeah,
mean. So
for sure, man. Powerful message. So let me ask you this: on your vision board in your mind, what do you have planned for? What would you like to see? What
mhm.
would you like to? What would you like? Life be life in apparel. Life be life in the movement. Life be life in the brand. What do you want to see for that in the future? What's your plans?
It's why I mentioned Anthony Bourdain and also W. Kamal Bell.
Mhm.
Love that brother. You know what I mean? I want to transition to that space. I want to sit down with people, not in a podcast
Mm.
format. I don't want to do podcasts, where we're just all sitting around and no, I want a one-on-one, let's talk about life. Let's talk about your accomplishments. Let's talk about what you're struggling through or something, that somebody else in your lane might relate to. I want to do that. I want to do what I set out to do as a kid, to learn from everybody. You know what I mean? And that's where I want Life Be Life to go. And then the clothes be the merch. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony Bourdain, but more different aspects of life, different struggles, different places, different way people think and what they're going through. I like that. I like that idea. I like that.
Yeah. And then I also want to start telling the positive Black stories. I
Hmm.
don't want everything just to be a struggle, because so like me, like for my instance, I never felt like I had somebody like my experience on television. That's why I didn't think I had a story. Everything you saw on TV, from Good Times to what's happening, like it was always a struggle. You know what I mean? And so, some of us, my parents didn't show it, so they didn't let us know. There was a couple times they may have struggled, but I never felt that struggle that a lot of my fellow folks
Hmm.
felt. Now, I have family members, and I've experienced the projects. I fought in the projects, because those things happen. So I've experienced those things. However, that was not my everyday life. You know what I mean? And so I want to tell those stories, and so that the Black folks who haven't had the experience that I have, who might be struggling or in certain situations, can see, yo, that life is possible. You know what I mean? Yo, there are many of us that's living that life. That's actually cool. That wasn't born with a silver spoon. Because
Yeah.
don't get it messed up. I went to private school, and there are some of us that kind of still look as others of us, in a funny light. And I just want everybody, including my community, to share in good positive experiences. And so I want to show those stories.
And black folks are so diverse, not even economically, like we talked about earlier, um, culturally. And I'm from
Yes.
Baltimore. Y'all in DMV. We
And I'm
45
from
minutes
Philly,
away. Very
yeah,
different culture. Philly. I just got back from New Orleans last week.
right,
Multiple different black cultures in New Orleans. So
right,
it's a lot. Everybody's struggle is not the same. And so
right.
it's a beautiful thing to highlight different struggles, different aspects of the struggle, and different ways to overcome that, and how different folks have done it.
And
Um,
don't forget about our, Black sisters and
yeah,
brothers overseas. Those in London. I'm watching a series on Tubi right now. Oh, I think it's called Breakers.
okay.
And it's
Hmm.
these Black kids that are going to private school, who might have a sketchy background a little bit. It's pretty cool to see, because I'm like, yo, there's other folks that are having the same experiences overseas. You feel me? So we're all connected in some kind of way, and I want to connect us. I want to connect humanity, and that's really what I want for Life Be Life.
That's dope.
And especially when you talk about blackness, man, we so often we try to compare our blackness, and you're black enough, you're not black enough, and your blackness being tied to being real,
Right.
right? But
Yep.
real looking a specific way. Real
Yeah.
being, I'm a cuss. I don't have the silver spoon. I come from a struggle. You
Mhm.
can have that same level of real being a private school educated, multi religious, gay man like
Right.
yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's your
Yeah.
real, right? So
Yeah.
because my
Yeah.
real is not your real, let's stop comparing our blackness amongst each other.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Because we
You know,
know the
comparing our
origin of that,
experiences.
who created that, why they
Yeah,
wanted to divide and conquer us as a race.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
correct.
let's be
You know,
aware of that, folks.
I definitely think we need to find some kind of unity within our community. You know, we've allowed people to tell us who we are for so long, you know, and have believed it for so long. It's about it's time for us to see something different and talk about something different about who we are as a community. I thought we were eventually getting there, but I've seen there's some remnants of what I've experienced when I was younger, you know, as far as us not really believing, you know, in the power of who we are as people.
Don't let the propaganda win.
Yes,
Don't let
absolutely.
the don't let the bots and the algorithms win. You got you like
Facts.
I say all the time. Like a lot of times people don't go off what they see with their own two eyes, real day in life. See the people who are good people, see the people who are bad people, see the
Yep.
not 99% of the people that they claim that are evil criminals and doing bad stuff. It's just hardworking people, and you got to use
Right.
your own eyes and use your own life and experience to see that for yourself.
Correct.
Don't let the propaganda win. Trust me. Now and right now it's as high as ever. So
Right.
that's
Right.
my spiel for the day. But don't let the algorithms
Yes.
win, man.
Yes, sir. We'll take that.
Yes, sir.
We'll take that.
All right, so we got life be life in. We're not calling a podcast. Life be life in conversations, right? Life
Yes.
conversation. Who
Yeah.
Real
Life.
conversations.
who are that's the creative in me, right? And Khalif, you being
Mhm.
a creative, and I always find it
Yeah.
interesting creatives who are businessmen pivot and then become businessmen who are then creative because those are two different dynamics. But anyway,
They are two different dynamics. Yeah.
who's who's on your Mount Rushmore of people that you want to ultimately sit down and have a life conversation with, and if at all we're in that space that where we can facilitate that, we'll do everything we can. But yeah, who are those four individuals?
Oof. That's good. I mean, just
It might be
anybody
a lot.
or
These are real people. Like don't put Anthony Bourdain in there. You know, may God rest his. Like people that are there that are attainable. Let's speak it into existence.
yeah,
They
yeah,
could
yeah.
be President Obama, or they could just be somebody that you admire online that you wanna have a
So
dope conversation.
there's always been three celebrities that and then well four really for me. Definitely Barack Obama. Like he's somebody I would love to just sit down and have a conversation about because he's so chill, you know what I mean? And it's not even about the politics before people, you know, want to dive into all of that. It's really just like I just see him in my family. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And it's just one of those chill folks that don't mind dropping knowledge and sharing knowledge and also being receptive to your knowledge. So I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him. Whoopi Goldberg. She was always somebody that I loved since a kid watching Jumpin' Jack Flash. You know, it just all of the cool Fatal Beauty. You know, I was as you see, I was a Whoopi Goldberg fan, you know, watching her when she did her stand-up comedy and she was Fontaine. You know, she just did if you paid attention to her comedy, she did brilliant comedy. You know, and I love people that make you think. So her. I already met Felicia Rashad. I always said I wanted to meet her. I met her through Ron David in DC at the Ron David store. He had her come out,
Mm.
and I got to talk to her real quick and briefly, and we had a chuckle. So that was kind of cool. And Venus Williams. You know, I'm a tennis fan, huge tennis fan, and Venus, I love the way she approaches things. So yeah,
Not Serena, Venus. Everybody always goes to
Venus.
Serena as being the goat, but the older sister. So
Well, Serena is the goat of tennis, absolutely. But before there was Serena, there was Venus. You know, Serena was inspired by Venus. You know,
yeah.
I appreciate Serena in the beginning. She was kind of a hothead on the court. Venus was the one that was always the level-headed, cool tempered, you know, confidence, swag, and still beat you, you know, kind of person when she really came into her own. So that's why I appreciate her differently than my love for Serena. Love Serena. she's the goat of all goats. The figure it out queen on the court. Love her, but Venus is the one for me.
Like you said, shout out to Ron David too. I went through that space over there in Union Market. That's a dope space over there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Shout out to you, brother. Because I wanted to wait my time. No, seriously, because the platform that y'all offer has been cool to me. You know what I mean? Y'all gave me my first vending opportunity. Let's not forget about that. Y'all putting Black people on. You put me on when Life was still kind of new. You had the relationship with Ken, but y'all gave me the chance to be at y'all expo, and I will always appreciate that. Brothers that are doing it, brothers that take risks, take chances, and to also take chances on other people. I appreciate that. So I will forever be grateful to y'all. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about what I have going on. I wanted to sit down and have it with y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We watch you build a brand. We appreciate you for coming and participating in what we got going on. We wish you nothing but more success. The partnership, the family's here. We anything that we could do to assist, just let us know, man. We're always here to help build and further the cause. You got a quality cause, quality message, and I could see the brand doing a lot of different places, doing a lot of different things. I feel like you have it inside you. You got to do it, and we're here to help you support you kind of when we can.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Trust me, I'm gonna be reaching out. Like, what you think?
And that support is real. As a lot of times we get guests on here and we start off, oh man, this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We saw each other on a Sunday. He was like, yo, I'm ready to be on the podcast. And you were about to be on the podcast on the Wednesday, but we had to change it. This was the easiest booking of a podcast. I ain't feel like I was like, because a lot of people, respectfully pull back the curtain. Running a podcast is not easy. This is probably the easy part, right? Having a conversation. Some people may think this is the hard part. Oh man, what questions I'm going to ask and what I'm going to do. There's a lot of logistics behind this. You don't want to feel like you bugging people. Oh man, they said they're gonna be on the podcast. Oh, I already reached out to them twice, and it was none of that. Hey, let's get on the pod. Boom. Within a week. So this has been the easiest, smoothest process. So thank you for that.
You know who my husband is, right?
That's real. Like that ain't for the pod. We didn't pay him to say none of the stuff he said. Like this is real support right here.
That nigga like, don't be flaky, Khalif. You know who my husband is. Ken no way. Because I mean, and also I'm an introverted extrovert, I guess, extroverted introvert. So I have my times when I'm like in this shell and I'm like, I ain't ready to come out. But doing what I do has really helped me with that. You know what I mean? And so I was when you text me earlier is when I got nervous about being on the podcast. Because remember, I just told you, I was like, I don't want no script. I don't want no questions. Let's just have a conversation. You know what I mean? Because once I start having to prepare for questions, I start getting nervous. You know what I mean? And I wanted this to be real, just a real, let's talk, bro.
There is such thing as being over prepared. Ben saw me in real time do that for our first live news segment. And I choked up. I was like, man, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I walked away from that like, oh, what was I doing? I sit here and talk about what we do every day, and I couldn't do it in front of this camera.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's another story. But we appreciate you. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I thank y'all for having me on the platform. I pray that this really, really expands more for you, brothers. What you have, what you're creating, what you've been doing has been amazing for all of us. I'm trying to get this out because I didn't put my laptop on the charger, so it's about to go out. But anyway, thank y'all. Love y'all. I will reach out, and please, if y'all have some things, don't hesitate to let me know or let us know what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Plug yourself real quick. Tell everybody where they can find you. Life be lifing. Spell it out for them. Give them the website. Give them the Instagram. How can anybody that is going through life support what it is that you got going on?
Absolutely. You can go to www.life, L-I-F-E, the letter B, and then lifeing.com. That's the website. Check it out. See if it's something that catches you. If it does, amazing. If it does not, that is fine too. Continue to life. And then you could also find our Instagram at Life Be Life. And so I always tell B without the E. And that's how you find us. Yeah, check it out. We have some cool stuff. Before the end of the year started, I revamped the website and dropped some new merch. We got sweatsuits now. We've been had the varsity jackets. That's been a popular thing. So I tried to elevate. So now we have leather and wool jackets as well. So yeah, come check us out.
Bet. We appreciate having you. Check out the merch, everybody. A lot of dope stuff on there. Dope man, dope situation, dope company, the positive message that's applicable to everybody. So we thank you for your time, sir. And like we said earlier, whatever you need, we're here for you.
I believe you, brother, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for having me.
We've been family since before the pod. We're going to continue to be family. Me and Benz, we 2 of 12 black men in the community as a part of Extraordinary Investment Group, doing what we do, impacting the world through education and smart financial strategies. Hopefully, y'all have been educated through this amazing individual story, through his vulnerability, through everything that he shared with you on the pod tonight. So, again, we thank you all. Check us out on all the streaming platforms, the Extraordinary Exchange, Spotify, Apple. You can watch the live on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, y'all be blessed and be extraordinary.
Hey, peace, y'all.